Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Attack Productions. Today I'm back up once again by Adam, Jake, and Nick.
Yellow.
What's going on, y'all?
Howdy, howdy.
And today's matchup is Jake versus Trevor. Trevor couldn't join us today, so we got a handful of experiences of people who know his deck, or he kind of typed out a list for us. But versus Jake, which is playing Gamma. So Gamma versus Zamasu, fun matchup. Blue on blue. This is going to be a long one. There's buttons, links, check them out. Let's get into the build. Or the game.
It's funny you mentioned that because while we're shuffling up here, the reason it's taking us so long is because we're laughing about how much Bancroft is going to hate editing this episode. Like, as soon as he saw me put a blue leader down, he was like, oh, Bancroft is going to hate editing this.
Taking bets as to what the playback speed's going to be.
Yeah. I think 300% was the guess.
275.
275? You know. It's not bad. It's not a bad
I could reduce it a little bit. I typically tried to get the life to show by the 45-second mark, and I was a little off on that one, but hey, it's whatever.
Yeah.
So, this particular Zamasu is the one that, on Awakened side, can hit a life to give itself dual attack, which, if I recall correctly, I think Trevor plays it. There is a blue Monaco extra card.
It's an energy.
Sorry, I said life. Yes, hits an energy. But there's a blue Monaco extra card, I think it is, which gives your leader double strike for the turn.
Yes.
And
yes, he was running that initially when he was first building this deck. I think he's taken that out since, but I couldn't be wrong about that.
I know, like I said earlier, he couldn't be here, so he kind of gave us a rundown. He wanted to take advantage of kind of just being able to awaken turn one, using the ring card. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head.
Time Ring, Goku Black, I think.
Yeah, Time Ring Awakening, and kind of just go off the idea of having a dual attack leader. Gamma, let's talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, Gamma's a deck that's been around for a long time, but me personally, I've never really found too much success with it. And honestly, at this point in the game, I'm just really impressed with that turn one. You're awakened, you have a battle card in play, you've drawn extra cards, attacked twice. You know, on turn, you're just completely set up for the rest of the game. So I think at this point, it'll just come down to like individual card quality between my deck and his. Like, who can draw the better cards at what point will determine if I'm able to defend against this. Because, like, he awakened on turn one, but I didn't awaken that much later on turn two. Yeah. So I've still got a shot here.
I know one of his perks of this playing this bigger deck, too, is that a lot of decks currently in the meta have very quick Z battle cards that like to play on turn two. They kind of set up a really good momentum for the deck, especially like 21, for example. Nick, you did play 21 this past weekend, and I think you played Trevor. Do you remember who went first in your all's matchup?
He went first.
So for him, his mulligan choice would be the card he charged here, which is Zamasu, which doesn't really benefit him against Gamma as much, but against something like 21, that's a really good one to kind of hang on to snipe the 21, right?
Yeah, and his big plan for 21 was he was going into the Tragedy Overground package, just trying to limit access to Android 21's battle cards, which super effective because most of Android's 21 battle cards are 4 or higher, so it really limits the deck. So it's a really neat tech and a really anti-meta choice, which is really nice.
And for Gamma, I think it's roughly the same thing. I think a lot of your cards are energy cost 3, so I think you kind of are safe to some degree. And if not, Blue has a lot of good Z battle card options to play, which are in 3-cost energies, like this Cell, or I think the Goku's also 3, and Beerus is 2, I think.
Yeah, the inclusion of the Z deck really has kind of like nerfed the power level of Tragedy Overground a little bit, which is honestly probably a good thing considering like how game warping of an effect it has. But like Bancroft mentioned, I think we'll see it come out at some point in this game. I have a lot of cards that get underneath Tragedy Overground, but most of my big guys like Cell, and we see a 7-drop 17 there in my Turning the Tide, excuse me, in my drop area. Like a lot of those guys, like what I really want to end the game with, I just won't have access to this game because I'm fairly certain that's the plan he's going for, like playing this leader and this full package here.
Well, the funny thing about that too is since Gamma can just pick up its energy, it doesn't matter if the cards get placed in the energy because you can just get them right back. And clause on Gamma says you don't. If you pick up cards, you can place up to a certain amount. So you essentially just reload your hand for combo power, and it just you don't lose out on them essentially, which is doesn't really work too well against Gamma.
I don't.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna say real quick. I don't know if he's had opportunity to do this yet, but Zamasu did get a new promo in this deck, which allows it to kind of get a lot of draw resources going on for it.
I think I know he's got it in here. I just don't know if he's already cast it at this point.
Okay, but if you're not familiar with the new promo for this deck, the thing about Goku Black is that with this particular one, Trevor, I think, went first in your all's game.
No, I did.
You went first, but you are so much more ahead of him when it comes to energy compared to where he should be at. Because, like, I think Goku Black has a way. It's like, it's pitching energy. It can cycle things back, right?
It has ways to ramp itself, but when the leader itself deramps, there's no real way to recover from that. But he's taking that into consideration, like. He's ramping usually 1 or 2 cards, but he's staying on curve because of it.
Yeah, and
so
that's where the new promo comes from. The new promo allows him to put it into his energy, and then he can immediately snipe it using the leader's ability to draw 2 cards with the Zamasu Unison, which gives him a lot of hand advantage now.
Yeah, and even in the game that I played against Trevor, it was both myself and him had no less than 10 cards at any point in time. So it was. He had a real easy way of getting a draw engine. It really helped him a lot.
I don't think Gamma, correct me if I'm wrong, unless you're able to snipe the earlier chain of it, has a way of dealing with his big chain once he starts coming out with it.
No, not much I can really do to deal with the big indestructible bodies other than just kind of comboing up and trying not to take damage from them.
Like,
Nick, do you know if he runs the Infinite Force Fusamasu in his deck that plays off of that Unison that snipes a life and an energy and a battle card?
I don't think so. I don't think he does. But if he does, I haven't seen it.
Okay.
But tell us about that.
Yeah, it's basically just a big 30k indestructible that when it swings, you can choose a card from your opponent's battle area, energy, life, hand, and you put them all at the bottom of the deck in any order. So it's a nice little boss monster card, especially when your opponent's down pretty low in life.
Yeah, and that's another great alternate win con just in case you are going up against the control matchups where even though you get them in a lock like Tragedy Overground, they can still be defensive. It just puts the extra timer on them that says, I'm going to win.
Yeah, and I don't know. I always feel like these Zamasu and Goku Blacks kind of have that strategy in most of their iterations where you're just under some sort of clock, whether it's you're at 8 energy, you're just down on combo power, you just kind of end up getting resourced out or just literally deleted by the Goku Black or Zamasu leaders at some point. So I'm worried about trying to end the game,
especially now that you've been hit now. But bright side, you don't have to worry about charging cards anymore.
No.
and the benefit, like we talked about earlier with Gamma, is that you could bring cards back to your hand in your turn. So you could bring back the 3 drops you can play. Actually, I think some of those can be played for your energy anyways.
Yeah, the 3 drops, 17 and 18 are pretty much the only cards that play from my energy I have access to anymore. And these 3-drop Gohans I can still play. I'm trying to think of everything. The Unison, of course, isn't affected by Tragedy Overground. There's this duo card, and then my Z deck. And pretty much other than that, there's not much that I have access to anymore. There's the 1-drop 17 Floodgate for defense, but Tragedy does kind of like limit my options here, and you see me like pitching more goes to the bottom of the deck and not the drop area, but you see me pitching more expensive options back to the deck, because even if I reload them to my hand, they're just going to get sent to the energy. And since Tragedy Overground is a replacement effect, like I don't even get the autos off of anything that I cast, so it's better to just chuck them back to the deck and dig for every 3 and 2 drop I can find.
And now it turns into death by 1,000 cuts rather than just, you know, your big swings like your Cell, your SCR, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the plan.
And I know if allowed, your Unison can gain dual attack.
Yeah, on the -4, I can get dual attack on it, and it gets plus 10k, but
it's just extra pressure that, you know, whereas Zamasu normally back when it first came down wouldn't have to worry about that stuff. You hit the big boys. Now it's a bunch of tiny guys coming to the board, but now it's like even tiny guys today. Like we see the Piccolo for blue. Active main 2 energy, you play it. It's a 3-drop. It hits the board. It's a dual. It can be a dual attack. You give it barrier. You play another card that just fetches cards from your deck. Like the current.
Well, now we have the Z. Now we have all the Z battle cards. Yeah, yet most of them are under 4.
The power. I don't want to say creep, but like just the way this game is kind of curved into a certain momentum. 3-drops are kind of where a lot of decks like to just go for. But this Beerus is good, especially if you have the energy for it. It's initially can swing 3 times in 1 turn because its active main will resand itself, but you do need to pay 2 energy, so it's like recasting it. But every time you swing with it, it gets a 5k boost.
Yeah, I really like the design of this Beerus overall, and it gets to remove, I think, 2 things over the course of the turn, but he just doesn't have any battle cards that I could remove anyway. Kind of risky. It's one of the few Z cards without deflect, but if you actually board it, it's pretty powerful. And, you know, in Gamma, you don't really get punished too heavily for paying all 4 energy, because you're going to get the free restand 3 no matter what.
Jake over here supplying the tokens.
Yeah, all kicking Kevin. He's been on both sides of the board this game, little traitor.
So at this point, is there anything you're worried about playing against Zamasu, Jake? You are technically in energy advantage. You got plenty of battle cards. I noticed you did not activate Gohan's ability, which I think like it pitches him and it kind of restricts your opponent's attacks. And you have more life right now.
Yeah, not super worried about the board state, more worried about the hand differential. I haven't really shown my hand on camera at all, and I don't think Trev has either. But we're looking at like 10 or 11 cards to 6 to 8 being the differential here.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. So, a lot of this stuff coming down is just going to draw him even more cards, clean that massive board I had built last turn up, and just start reapplying the pressure.
And he's going to draw 2 for this right here, keeping that hand advantage where he wants it. And now he's a very... Oh, never mind.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Did not like the writing on the wall there. Tragedy's going to go ahead and just jam that straight to my energy. So,
and Hatch's effect is all in the counterattack, so it's negated regardless.
Yep. Jam that pretty instantly there as soon as he tapped down, because from this point on, if I dedicate that resource and it gets baby aped, I'm pretty much screwed, because I don't really have another good floodgate that I still have access to. Like, I'm pretty sure the Android 13, I think it is. I'm pretty sure that's a 4-drop, right?
Oh my
it gets
gosh.
reduced. So, yeah. And I literally swung with this 18 and said Hatchiak, and he was like, yeah, that's the move.
Wow, okay. It's very interesting at this point in the game.
As Bancroft says, that's a card.
Yeah. So now he has 2 life left. It's reasonable to understand to play the Hatchiak, I guess. But at the same time, I do feel like you have plenty of energy, you know? Like, you mentioned we can't see your hand. We don't know where you're sitting at in the game. But that's, I don't know, that's a board, though. That's a board the more I look at it.
Yeah, all of these shadow tokens are 15 for the turn. Cell is nice and big. I'm pretty sure there's more energy on my table than cards in my hand. So if Trevor decides to get really aggressive, and he's just removing what battle cards he can here, if he decides to get really aggressive this turn, I could be in a lot of trouble, even though I'm at 4 life.
Yeah. And
even if he just puts me at 1 where I can't spark or do anything like that, that'd be bad.
And I know the strategy here primarily is to swing with anything you possibly can swing with first. And then if you feel like you can't go for the game, you hang on to those shadow tokens for blocking, because they gain blocker.
Yeah.
Now I will
that
say
was
I was sitting beside you guys during this matchup, and I think there's gonna be a missed opportunity in this turn, if I heard correctly. And we'll talk about that if that happens. Seventeen's a good one. Now, we did see he had release, absolute release ball, I think it is called, earlier. And if he doesn't have another one out here, he is definitely hurting, I feel like. Because it's every attack you have to pitch a card, right?
Yeah, every swing with battle cards, he'll have to bottom deck one. And it makes these token attacks a lot less attractive for him on his turn. It might be a missed opportunity, or I don't know, it could be intentional. But Trev kind of neglected to restand the cell and attack with it by removing my card. Although, with him not being here, we don't really know if that's intentional or not, considering he was under the floodgate. But he had way more cards in his hand than I did. And I just kind of responded by playing a cell right back. And being a 3-cost board wipe is just nuts. Gets under tragedy, cleans things up, and really kind of turned the tide for me here.
So he definitely Zamasu, which, like you mentioned earlier, tap Cell down, which doesn't really hurt too much because Cell does have to activate main to resand itself. And you haven't done it yet, okay.
No, I'm just in usual me style, just going for death of 1,000 cuts, like Adam said earlier. Just try and bleed one card out of their hand at a time.
But yeah, you did this, and I remember hearing Trevor go, wait, you could do that? And you're like, yeah, Jimmy got me on that like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think that was on camera too, where we were both playing blue, and I did not use the cell effect, and then he did, and I was like, oh, okay. It only cares how many cards are... You have to remove at least one card from underneath him, and if you remove, I think it's 3 or 4, he gets triple strike. So
For sure, I think it's 5, but...
Yeah, whatever the number is, it's more than typically gets underneath him, considering all the Z cards in the format right now that just leave the table when they would go underneath him.
He's currently tapped out. He's used a lot of resources just to keep out of this. He can't... I think... Yeah, it's game. So, like Adam said earlier, follow up with Jake, it's just a death by 1,000 cuts. In the long game, I was able to pull this one off. Thank you all for tuning in. Keep on those buttons, links, descriptions, and thanks for tuning in.